Opening karakia. Whakataka te hao. Kia maha kina kina kita. Kia maha taka taka ki tai. Kia hira kia ana ti atura. Tio uka Tina, Tina, Taranaki. Thank you very much. We have an apology from Councillor Davey and quite possibly Councillor Maxwell as he is cycling around the north or the south? The South Island. He's going to try and join us, but I think he can. I've got a few questions from him to bring up during the meeting. That he prepared just in case he couldn't make it. Any other apologies? Second, thank you very much. Nathan, Tom. All those in favour, please say aye. There are none. We will begin with a deputation from our old friend, Donald McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Donald, you've got 10 minutes.
Thank you.
If you wish, and 5 minutes for questions. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, councillors and staff. I didn't think I'd be coming back to sit around this table so soon, having been on the other side for 27 years. But on the 8th of November last year, a very observant young man reported to staff at a fishing day, take a kid fishing day on Lake Rotomanu, that clams that were on their display board were already here in the lake. What followed was an intense few weeks to discover the extent of the incursion, how far it had spread, and in other waterways, etc. I live around the eastern arm of Lake Ratapico and have done so for the last 32 years. So when I saw TRC staff at the boat ramp in early November, I called in and found out more. When Lake Rotomanu was closed to stop the spread of the gold clam to other waterways just before Christmas, this saw an immediate increase in the number of powerboats coming to Lake Ratapico, and that came a lot less observation of the boating rules, i.e. Maritime New Zealand, and that's another issue that maybe this council might like to think about one day. I am a lake warden for the lake, so I have been kept busy trying to keep it safe for everybody to enjoy. There are boats on the lake from 8:30 in the morning right through to dark, and in the summer. And on peak days, there can be as many as 15 watercraft on or around the lake. So it does get very busy. Just before Christmas, I was contacted if it was possible to store an MPI washdown trailer to be used at the lake for clean down boats, etc. It didn't arrive until Christmas, New Year, and only started to be used after holidays was over. The students that were manning the station were not proficient to move the washdown trailer, so other staff had to come and shift it for them. And they were doing other work as well, so we're not always on time or on the job. The people from New Plymouth who have holiday homes on the Waikato River system are probably the vector which brought the clams back to Taranaki. These people bring their boats back home after holidaying and use their boats where they live, New Plymouth, as well as midweek, etc. And to make sure that their $100,000 wakeboard boats is running smoothly before they go away on holiday, they shoot down to Lake Rotomanu to run it up. They don't like going to the port because it is salt water and rougher waters. If Lake Rotomanu was left open, these boats would not come out to other lakes, lowering the risk of spread, and Lake Rotomanu is the perfect lake for this incursion to have happened. It is closer to the sun, to the sea, so the outfall from there only has a short distance to get to the salt water. Closer to the town so that people can use it readily, and it can be drained for inspection, etc. If we go for elimination of gold clam in Lake Rotomanu, as well as above, as well as what I've talked about above, there would be no fish, or i.e. trout, in the lake, and so fishermen would not be tempted to fish in multiple places to spread the clam, as this is probably the how the clam got to New Zealand in the first place. M. bovis was said that if it is said it hadn't been eradicated anywhere else in the world, but here we are we're 75% of the way to eradication of M. bovis. Paying for it, and that's always the thing, who has to pay? If the gold clam got into our waterways, it would impact power generators, the town water intake, and so we can ask these people to help us with the cost of the program. We still run the risk of the clam coming down from the Waikato, but to date we have kept it in control. Didymo has been kept out up till now, and so we can do these things. We are Taranaki, we can do this. Put all our minds together and come up with a solution that works and has not cost a fortune, and keep Taranaki the best place in New Zealand to work and play and holiday. We have the sunshine hours. So if you look on the screen above you, that was taken on the 4th of January at about 1 o'clock, and unfortunately you're probably a little bit distant. You can see the number of people that are there, but you can't see a TRC person there because they arrived pretty soon after that. But like I say, you can see that the amount of traffic is there on those days, and that's just not untypical. That's my presentation, thank you.
Thank you. Donald, does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just several of them. Donald, what specifically are you seeking for us to do? You've sort of hinted various things, but what is your particular view that you think should be done?
I would like to advocate for eradication by one of the methods described in the proposal for those reasons, because by keeping it out of the rest of our waterways, we can protect the hydroelectric schemes. We don't have many, but they are small and very vulnerable to those incursions. And also you've got the town water supplies, which could be, if it got into the streams, where we take our town water from, it could clog those intakes up quite strongly. So I think we need to make an effort to try and contain it in Lake Rotomanu and eliminate it. And if it does come back again, that's the best place to contain it. Like I've said, we can actually drain the lake, kill it, and looking at what is said in the report, by lowering the lake on previous times, it may have stemmed the tide of it developing to the extent that it has in the Waikato River. So I think there's lots of positives about trying to eliminate it, and the benefits from not having it in our other waterways.
And Mr. Chairman, if I ask another question, is, Donald, do you have any proof that in fact it is or has arrived in Lake Rotopica?
Not at this stage. I refer to Steve on that one, but my understanding is that they have looked and haven't found anything, but the lake will be dropped in April as a normal process, and I'd like to think that at that point in time more work will be done to make sure that there is none in the lake.
And third question, Mr. Chair, is are you suggesting that there should be some special, shall we say, regulation to prevent people coming from, say, the Waikato or anywhere to going to this lake or any other Taranaki lake and processes to deal with the problem in that way, because that is also another restrictive practice?
I think that's probably too much of a challenge for the general public to probably do. I stand to be corrected, but the incursion that we've had, I think, was probably the only incursion we've had, and maybe that occurred at around the time that it was discovered, and maybe that spurred those people who do transit their boats backwards and forwards to do the cleaning and washing and draining of their boats to a lot greater degree. So we may have, solved some of those problems by doing that. But also, like I say, if we leave Lake Rautamanu open, it gives those people somewhere to go, dare I say it, clean their boats out and contain it in that way.
Donald, just to be clear, you're advocating closing Lake Rautamanu?
No.
So would closing Lake Rautamanu to motorised watercraft not be as good as eradicating it? You would be preventing spread. Okay.
No, because
so?
those people with those boats,
yes,
like I say, they're not cheap boats that they're carting around the countryside, and those people do have money, so they can afford to do those sorts of things. I'm not denying them that privilege. They will go to where they can to exercise that right, and if you close Rautamanu, they'll go somewhere else.
Oh, you'd rather they, okay.
And then you do have a problem. Like I say, Rautamanu is a very nice lake to be able to recreate in, but it's also, for a contamination like this, I think it's probably a perfect lake because we can contain it. We can dewater it at times. Not, like I say, you can't dewater the Waikato River system to achieve clean out. There's lots of benefits to having Lake Rautamanu open.
Yeah, and you're definitely in favour of more surveillance and preparedness and investing in that side of things.
Yeah, and part of my point earlier on is the washing and cleaning and advising of what has happened to date, to my observations at Lake Rautapico, is quite frankly a waste of time. Right. It was too minimal, too late. Okay,
all right, thank you. Do you want to say something, Alan?
Through you, Chair. I think you've asked my question, and it was regarding the banning of boats on Rautamanu. We're actually having it open, I think, is better use of the facility. Try and get rid of the clams, of course, use the facility, and then possibly it would save that problem of those boats from the Waikato if they come from there, deciding to run it at Rautapico or
we can talk about that when it comes up. Any questions for Donald while he's here?
Yeah, I have one, Chair.
Yes.
As a guardian of the lake that you administer, what does that entail? What does that mean, and what does it entail?
I'm a warden, so I'm there to make sure people are following the rules, etc. Which, like I say, with the sudden influx of boats from New Plymouth who weren't allowed to use Rautamanu, that's seen a huge influx of people who don't normally come out to Rautapico, and the adherence to rules has been low, and so you've got to kind of remind them that if everyone plays by the rules, you can all enjoy yourself. If not, then what used to be Manawa Power, now Contact Energy, probably might just say, if we can't have an organised system, then we'll close it down and shut it off from the community use, and that would be a shame because it's a great community asset.
So you were saying that regional council staff weren't out there, but I would imagine they would be relying on what you were doing to cover that lake.
No.
I mean, you're the...
I was never given any instructions to that point.
But surely in your role,
no,
that's what you're doing.
No.
You're sort of checking for those things.
No, I don't. I'm a volunteer at best. I don't get paid to be there and make sure people are washing their boats or anything like that. That's not my role.
I'm a volunteer too at a lot of organisations, and they do the best work.
Okay, we do have a couple more questions, so we'll let the others have a go. Jonathan.
Don, so what you're proposing is that a managed infestation of Rautamanu is the best chance to protect other lakes and waterways in Taranaki? That
would be my thoughts, yes. I'd still like to see eradication, but I still think by having Rautamanu open, it gives us that opportunity to cleanse a lot of the boats, etc., to minimise any spread to other areas.
Right. So perhaps having a stronger response at Rautamanu
Well, that's where your biggest population base is, so it's going to be,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Bonita?
That was one of my questions. Thank you. Kia ora, Donald.
Morning.
Nice to see you. The second question I have is around the funding. When you talked about others coming on board, do we know if that's a given, or are we just hoping at this stage that have there been any discussions with any of those corporates?
That's something I'll have to refer to Steve on,
Okay, so
whether
Steve's
he's
saying no.
done any research on that.
Okay.
I certainly haven't done any research on it, but they are things that I can see that if you approach Contact Energy, that they may well be interested in assisting with that. And like I say, if you've got the district councils who are taking the water from Lake Mangamahoe, Pātea, and Kapuni, and then there's also the Inglewood and the Okado streams, which could well be affected if it got into the water courses.
So you'll be looking for those who have vested interest to help fund those things.
Yeah.
Just can I just ask?
I don't know what models we have in place to do that, but that would be my
That
thoughts.
would be your ideal. The rules you mentioned for that beautiful lake, are they who makes those rules, and how are they upheld?
Well, at the moment they are.
Are they legal? That's what I'm
The
asking.
eastern arm, which I farm around, is how do I describe it? The people who run the clubhouse that sits on it is the Taranaki Jet Boat Club, and so between Taranaki Jet Boat Club, what used to be Taranaki Energy in those days, but now that's morphed through into Contact Energy, there's been a set of rules put in place for users to abide by, and for the safety and well-being of everyone, because it's not a good plan to have accidents and things like that, apart from the publicity that it does generate. So it's been a community bylaw, and it's just for water use on the surface, really, rather than anything else.
But they're not legally enforceable if you were challenged. That's really my question.
I couldn't answer that,
Okay.
but my thoughts are that there's probably there's like I say, you've got to remember the water body is no one owns, but the land around it is owned by Contact Energy or ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Donald. Appreciate your passion.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing for the community.
I look forward to your results.
We'll see how we go. This is coming up towards the end of the agenda, item number 12. All right, thank you. We have John online now, so everybody is present. Next up, receiving the deputation from Donald McIntyre. I'll move it. Seconder, please. Thank you, Susan. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Right, next we have the confirmation of the minutes from our December ordinary meeting. That is on page 5. The recommendation is to take it as read and confirm the minutes.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you. Tom?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, any corrections? Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? There are none. Moving on. Item number 6, receipt of Executive Audit and Risk Committee, 3rd of December. We're receiving the minutes and adopting the recommendations
I'll
therein.
move, Chair, all straightforward.
Anything to talk to, Tom?
No, it was all on the agenda.
Very much. Seconder. Thanks, Alan. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Item number 7, Ops and Reg Committee minutes, 10th of February.
As with the audit committee minutes, they speak for themselves.
You happy to
And in
move?
my view, they're an accurate record of
Thank
that
you.
which transpired.
Susan, you happy to move?
I am.
Thank you. Thanks, Lee. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Policy and planning.
Happy to move the minutes, Mr. Chair, and just note that there have been further movements with the Trans-Tasman application, so it might be timely to just give a bit of an update in this meeting as well, following on from that. But otherwise, happy to move the minutes as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, thanks Donna. All those in favour, please. Aye. Against?
Mr Chair, just
Yes.
one question I'd like to ask about this. I don't know what was in the previous, I don't think we did, but are we planning to actually go to the select committee to present these various matters related to the changes in the RMA and things of that sort? Are we actually thinking of turning up for the select committee?
Steve?
The RMA submission asked that council be able to speak to it, yes. The other one is a presentation, a submission to the Department of Internal Affairs, so there won't be a public hearing process.
I did hear that the person conducting that, Grant McCullum, who's the chair of that committee, said that what he's doing is he's changing the rules a little bit so that important submissions are given much more time. In other words, if someone comes with just one issue or something, normally you just get 5-minute slots to do these things. So if you've got quite a lot of things and you've raised quite a lot of issues, and if you were given a longer period, it might be useful. So I just wondered if it would be worthwhile going if we get the opportunity.
I'd have to say Parliament select committees haven't been great at hearing all submitters, so will obviously depend on what process they put around it and whether we ever get invited to present verbally.
Okay.
But certainly the request has been made in the original submission which you approved.
Now might be a good time for a TTR update. Fimbo, is that you?
Oh, by the way.
Go on.
Through you, Chair. Yes, so you would have seen the media reporting that TTR has withdrawn their fast track application. So that means the process basically stops and shuts down. There's been some media reporting that they are considering what their next steps might be. For us, we'll wait and see what that could look like, but we are planning to bring a report to the next Policy and Planning Committee, just providing a bit more detail on the decision and also providing a bit of analysis on where some of our comments that we made kind of flowed through and supported that made by the panel.
Right, so a couple of weeks' time we'll have some more info. Yeah.
Just a question from Bar. My understanding then is that because the process has now ceased or stopped while the decision was in its draft form, that there is now no legal standing or precedent set because it was cut off basically, which means that it's all up for grabs again. Would that be correct?
Through you, Chair, it's true that it doesn't have legal standing as a final decision. Hypothetically, if TTR was to lodge again under this process, if they were going to fast track, they would have to lodge as I assume they would have to lodge as a referral. They would then become a referral application, so they've got to go through a process where the Minister approves them being admitted first. Actually, I'll check that though. A future panel, if it did so happen, would need to grapple on what weight they give to the draft decision. The current panel did look back at the process that, how it went through the EPA process partially before, but then they pulled out. The past panel did look back at that stuff and basically said, it's still useful and it's still a reference point to go back to, but it can't be binding on the decision making of a new panel, but it could be a useful reference point if they were to lodge again. And worth noting as well, my understanding is because it's the application has been withdrawn, there's no opportunity to appeal because the decision wasn't actually issued, unless, yeah.
My understanding is, given that they've withdrawn, that the whole thing remains live, that they could re-bring the application. I understand your point that they would have to satisfy the Minister that they should be on the fast track, but this will be the second time they've played this particular card, as opposed to had they received a final decision that would have presented a fairly substantial wall for them to climb over.
Yeah. Yes, and through your chair, this will be the standard. I would expect this will be the standard process for any fast track application. There was one other one for a housing development up in Auckland where the draft decision was to decline and the applicant withdrew. There's no unless you're planning to appeal the decision, there's no rationale to actually let that decision go through and become final if it's clear it's going to be a decline, which is perhaps an unintended consequence of how the Act has been
It also,
drafted.
it kind of creates an environment of uncertainty. It obliges those who resist such applications to continually spend more money, and none of which achieves the level of certainty that would surely be desirable.
So, Finbar, through you, Chair, does that mean that with the withdrawal, that decision, that it's draft, can't be finalised?
Through you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. The process is stopped. So the EPA has stopped the process. And in terms of that report that will come back to PNP, we will just make sure to check, because now that I think about it, it's not exactly clear if whether the application stays on the books as one of the applications that's listed in the Act, and therefore they can go straight into the process again, or they would have to go through the Minister. Just as I'm thinking about that, something we'll just dig into to see if
Surely
what that
the
means.
latter. Surely if you've withdrawn your application, you have to go back to ground zero and satisfy the Minister first.
That's my first assumption, but we'll double check.
Good.
That would be that would be assuming that the Fast Track Act still applies if they wanted to go down that. But theoretically, there could be new laws that are drafted and passed that would allow a new application or the application to proceed.
Through you, Chair, Parliament is sovereign and can do what it's like.
Thank you, Finbar.
Its mandate.
Thanks, Finbar.
Political suicide.
All right, we will carry on, and looking forward to that report, Finbar. Item number 9, the appointment of external appointees to council committees, page 25. Nicole. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, through you, Chair. In December, a report was prepared and presented to notify council of appointments of external reps from the other councils, and at the time we had not received any appointments from NPDC. At the same meeting, there was a recommendation made to seek an appointee to the Operations and Regulatory Committee from Taranaki Federated Farmers. The report before you today is a sister report to those two items to enable council to receive the appointments from both NPDC and Taranaki Federated Farmers. The appointments are listed quite clearly in recommendation B and paragraph 7 of the report, which I'll take as read and happily answer any questions if you've got any.
Thanks, Nicole. Any questions?
I'll move the recommendations, Chair.
Move, seconder. Thanks, Neil. No questions? Well done, Nicole. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Steve, item number 10, triennial agreement, page 28.
Thank you, Chair. Here, the triennial agreement is a statutory requirement that all councils in the region have to enter into an agreement covering a range of matters that are set out in the Act. Specific reference to regional councils there if we're undertaking changes and proposing to make changes to some of our significant activities. This is a draft that went through the mayoral forum and as put here, we have looked at modernising it a little bit from the previous version, which really reflected the standard put in place back in 2002. So we've tried to bring it up to 2025, 2026. But look, happy to, and it's obviously subject to approval by all 4 councils, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Steve.
Through you, Chair, just one question. With regard to the mayoral forum, I see bullet point 11 where it's act as a voice for the region in this agreement. Is that something new? Because the mayoral forum has tended to be a voice of the mayors in the past, and chair, of course, as opposed to something that's gone through a council meeting.
So if you don't agree with that cause, that is a new one that's trying to recognise the practical realities of what mayors have sought to do.
Yes.
If this council wants to place limits on what its chair can do, then they can obviously do that. We just require a resolution for a notice of motion resolution to limit his powers.
Through you, Chair, I don't have a problem with that, but I did see further on where it does say that anything that's put out to the public will be run through the council as well, which is something new too, so I'm happy for that to happen.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Chair, I have one. If for some reason the government decide tomorrow to take you out of operation, and us,
All of us.
what in here covers it? Does that automatically fall back to the responsibility of the CEO? There's nothing seems to be covering that contingency, and I thought we should have really just covered that all.
So this is the issue of simplifying local government reform and what happens then. What will happen, well, there'll need to be special legislation passed to enable that proposal to happen. They would deal with, as part of that legislation, they would deal with any new processes needed to govern the operation of the council and the role of the mayoral forum, or any actually of triennial agreements. It's obviously proposed, the proposal was put out for consultation, didn't get into that level of detail. It's a level of policy work and legal. There'll be a whole bunch of flow-on consequences that will get thought about when they draft the bill and in the final policy decision. You would still have a triennial agreement while you had more than one council in the region, and legally, under the proposal, the Taranaki Regional Council would continue to exist until a reorganisation plan was approved, and then there'll need to be a process to, if for example they went to one or more unitary councils, there'll be a process and at least an order in council process to disestablish and re-establish the new councils, and this would just be a minor administrative issue dealt with through that process, I would imagine.
Okay.
I mean, what you've got with the agreement is how they're going to behave in the meantime.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to, that issue will get sorted through as part of any drafting of legislation needed to amend it.
Because all regions have triennial
All
agreements.
regions, apart from unitaries, will have a triennial agreement. And so, yes, if you ended up with one unitary covering the whole of Taranaki, you wouldn't need a triennial agreement.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you will.
All right.
I'm happy to move it.
Happy to move. Second up. Thanks. Bonita. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Next one, we have annual plan estimates approach, page 37, Mike.
Morena koutou. This item is to consider the options and approach we wish to adopt in preparing and adopting our 26-27 annual plan. It follows on from the workshop and briefing that we did pre-Christmas and builds on the issues that were discussed at that time. So we're required to do an annual plan. We have an approach that either involves a special consultative procedure and engagement with the community, or we have an approach, a streamlined approach under the Local Government Act, which allows us to just adopt an annual plan where there are no significant material variances and differences from what we set out to do in the LTP for 26-27. And that's the case we find ourselves in as of today. There is nothing fundamentally new or different in the proposals in our annual plan around levels of services, programs of activities, or indeed budgets and rates levels. So they're all consistent with what we were planning to do when we went through the extensive process of preparing our 24-34 long-term plan. So what we are doing in this paper is recommending that we take advantage of those streamlined processes and move through a process where we adopt the annual plan in May and carry on from there. In the paper I've given you the alternatives if we decide to go through the special consultative procedure. First things first, we need to identify those issues we wish to have a conversation and engage the community on. And at this stage there are none of those identified issues. And then there are two different time frames around whether you go with a consultation and engagement process or use the streamlined process. Couple of observations there. If we use the streamlined process, We still need to undergo a special consultative procedure on our Section 36 Resource Management Act charges. And any decisions that you make in relation to the golden clams that is later on in our agenda will need to be added into the annual plan. So there's no financial provision for expenditure nor rates in the budgets and plans as they currently stand. So other than that, Chair, I'm very happy to answer questions and guide the council.
Thank you, Michael. Makes a lot of sense to me. Does anybody have any questions, Alan?
Yeah, I just had one. I thought because of the potentially a cost of clams, the reduced returns from the port, and maybe the cost of implementing the changes that are significant from the government reforms, etc., that our costs probably have changed or could change to stuff we don't know. And I was also a little bit concerned about the actual percentage rise of our rates, up over that 9%, where we've been told by most councils, to keep that figure down, and we're still charging ahead with that 9%, which I'm not happy to put out to our public.
9% in dollar terms amounts to what?
Yeah, that's my question.
So there's a few
Yeah,
points
one at a
raised.
time.
Let me work my way through those carefully.
You've got two then.
So Port Taranaki dividends, at this stage all the indications is that we will have the $8 million dividend for 26-27. So at this stage that is the level of dividends that are going in there. The intention, and we discussed this at the workshop, is that for the LTP we will need to start thinking about that sort of medium term, longer term future around dividend flows and the impact of that. We'll be connecting obviously with the port company around to understand the impact of LNG decisions and the like, and so there's a lot of balls up in the air in that regard. So there's nothing specifically at this stage to engage the community with on dividends. I think the second issue you raised was the clams, and so what we've done with the next paper that you'll consider, we've included what the impact of those various options would be in terms of increased expenditure and the impact on rates if there is no third-party funding available. So I think that from recollection, the preferred option was at about 250,000, would equate to approximately a 1% additional rates increase if there was no other external funding. The issue on whether to consult or not and engage with the community on those sorts of matters comes down to your significance and engagement policy that you adopted in the LTP. And the guidance the criteria that we've got in there as to trigger you thinking about the level of engagement you undertake with the community are around, do we have a large number of ratepayers or residents that we are going to affect to a moderate extent? Or do we have a small number of residents or ratepayers that we're going to impact to a large extent? Or is there a wide history of significant public interest in a particular issue? I'd like to, our assessment of that is that at this stage, with those levels of commitment, you're probably not triggering your significance and engagement policy. And in of its own right, the golden clam issue would not be significant enough to trigger separate consultation and engagement. That does not stop you from undertaking such a process if you decide to do so.
Mike, before we address the questions from over here about the dollar value, I guess, just on the clams, and maybe Steve can help too, the 250, I understand part of that includes staffing as well. Is there a way that we could perhaps, if we went for the preferred option, cover or a large chunk of that within existing budgets, within existing staffing?
Chair, that would be a significant challenge. We've been through a comprehensive process to look at our budgets and our programs of work for 26, 27. We've looked, we've taken down some savings, we've looked for timing differences, and we've also looked to use the dividend equalisation reserve. We're basically clearing that out. So there would be some compromises, trade-offs to achieve that, but I'm
kind of
I'm
hear
Steve,
Steve
I'm
saying
looking at
maybe.
Steve's. Looking.
Yeah, it's a maybe. There is certainly Mr. Ellis and I have had some discussions which we haven't caught up with Mr. Meald on yet. Because again, that is
Oh, no, you're
well,
not
there's
engaging,
work
mate.
to be done to clarify actually what would it involve in more detail. It's an indicative number, so there's work needed to clarify exactly what would be needed and what would it cost. And there are a range of options in there that are subject to be part of that further work. And then the costing stuff would be finalised and I think there would be some level of increase in rating levels there, but that's part of that next level of work we need to do.
Okay, so it's not cut and dry, the full
It's not
1%.
cut and dry, as is the 250k is not cut and dry either.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
indicative of and in fact, I think Mr. Ellis will comment on this further. They are indicative numbers, rather they're very much indicative wet finger numbers, rather than numbers you'd be
Banking on.
banking on. Yeah. They are really just seeking a broad direction of travel, and there is, as well as clarifying that work and potential contributions from other parties, etc., are things that would need to occur. Because again, a number of those issues are beyond our control.
For the,
And just
Sorry.
the opportunity we've got between now and May is to explore those options.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and come back with more detailed plans.
thank you. For the average household, I guess, the difference between a 5% and a 10%, it's going to get your calculator going, rate rise.
Don't ask me to do mental arithmetic, Chair.
I think that's the question.
So Chair, I'm always reticent to discuss regional council rates in percentage terms because we're an order of magnitude smaller than our district council territorial rates to start with. So when you talk about 10% rates increase on a district council rates, that for an average residential ratepayer, that might be $400 or $500. For a 10% rates increase for an average regional council ratepayer, that might be $40 or $50. So again, you've got that order of magnitude difference. So as I say, I'm always reticent to talk about in percentage.
And although you are the
rates.
40 or 50, we're talking about 20 to 25 would be the difference. Therefore,
Half of it,
yeah, over a year.
But I'm also cognizant that we're in difficult financial times. We've got we're under pressure for rates capping guidance to get there. And sorry, that was one point I didn't address with Councillor Jamison's comments about the level of rates. We talked about this, sticking with our financial strategy that we've got in our long-term plan. What the long-term plan financial strategy does is quite quickly gets us into that rates capping space in the latter years of the long-term plan. So it's taking a bit of pain now for better results later on. If we don't take that bit of pain now, that journey is going to be that much harder.
Yes,
So
because it compounds, doesn't it? In effect, it's a lower, in the future years, it's a lower rate increase on a higher base if we don't do something now. Donna, you had a question?
We talk in December reduced resource consent revenue because of the changes in policy. Have we got any idea what that is yet?
Chair, we still await the law and the impact on that. We're monitoring all the time as we get better information. It's also an in and out situation. So if your revenue comes down, you'll have to reduce your costs as well, because you'll need fewer resources and all the rest of it to undertake the processing of that consent. So it's a fraction early yet is the answer to that question.
It's what, sorry?
A fraction early to give you a definitive answer on that question.
Okay. All right.
I'm a bit with Susan. I'd really like to know what that means in terms of dollar level for our households. And unfortunately, because our rates notices come out with regional council rates along with district and city council rates, people don't differentiate. So they see us proposing to put our rates up by nearly 10% or 9 or whatever it is. And for people, that means hundreds of dollars. So I think it would be a really valuable exercise to extrapolate out those numbers and just give our public some indication. We're talking about your regional council rates. If you already pay this much, the rate amount we are proposing will add this much to your bill for the year. Just, like you say, hard times for many of our residents. Some certainty around what they're going to be expecting to pay, I think, would alleviate some of that angst. That's my personal
Some good
opinion.
comms around this.
Yeah, some good comms around that would be great.
Okay.
And it'd be great if we led on dollars rather than percentages.
Percentages.
I mean, if you see a 10% increase, you go into palpitations territory. But if you realise that it's $25, you're probably not going to get that excited.
Yes. Chair, thanks for that feedback. We'll certainly take that on board. We provide all that information in the annual plan when we produce it, but I appreciate you haven't got it today.
Reverse it.
Would it be disingenuous to to say it's a percentage rates increase on the total rate, including everything else they pay to everyone else? We'll say it's $4,000 because they live in New Plymouth and it's your average household, and our portion of rates increases just like
Chair,
there's
a local authority that close to us that got themselves into a lot of trouble playing games like that. I would not recommend you do that.
It's big maths.
That is big maths. Maybe I had too much coffee this morning. So.
What a good idea.
Item number 11, I will move this along with recommendation D, which is approving the annual plan without further public engagement or consultation in accordance with the Act. That is what we are discussing right now. Thank you, Neil. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? There are none. Right, I've been looking forward to this one all week. Steve.
Yes.
Page 46.
Only a week, Mr. Chairman. This has been my life since November the 8th. Morena tatou. So we've got the paper in front of you, and thanks to Donald for your deputation. I thought I'd just respond to a couple of things in that, if I may.
Sure.
It was never our intent to have the boat ramps manned from dawn to dusk throughout the whole time. The intent of that, we don't have the resources for that. We don't have enough staff to be able to do that, even with the 2 students. The intent really was to have a visual and physical presence for people to remind them that it's their responsibility to clean their boats. It's never council's responsibility to clean their boats. It's their responsibility. So having that water blaster that MPI loaned us, thanks MPI, I know you're watching, on site to make sure that people could remember that it is important to do that. So that's why we never had people there from dawn till dusk. We just couldn't do it. But thanks, Donald, for allowing us to stick it on your land. It was a really great help, so we didn't have to move this 1 tonne of water backwards and forwards all the time. It was really good. So for the paper itself, I won't go too much into the background because we've talked a little bit about claims, but really top of the head stuff that you've heard me say before, Donald brought up as well. First time they've been found outside of the Waikato River. Prolific breeders, 400 a day. They let a little microscopic clam out, which has a little sticky thing that floats through the water column and lands in other areas. They can clog infrastructure. through irrigation systems, electric generating infrastructure, water treatment plants, and it's important to know they've never been eradicated on a national scale before. But there has been some success at small scale in the Taupō Aqua Park, which MPI Biosecurity New Zealand led, using one of the techniques that I've talked about as one of our options. So immediately following the finding of the clams, thanks to young Max, who did, like Donald talked about, was at one of the Biosecurity Taranaki events, and noticed that the clams were by the boat ramp. And I think I said last time we didn't actually believe him until he went and got it and brought it back. Once we found that out, within 2 days the lake was closed. MPI joined us on site. We did a delimiting survey to see if they'd gotten any further into the other high-risk waterways. I think it's important to remember a survey is not a census, right? So just because we haven't found it in one of those places, it doesn't mean it's not already there. It quite possibly is already in Rarapico. It quite possibly is already in other lakes throughout the region.
If we don't know, would be quite likely then, wouldn't it, surely?
Potentially. So if you've read the attachment, the appendix, the delimiting survey that Earth Sciences did for us on Rotamanu suggested that given the size of the clams, they could be up to 2 years old. So they're estimating that that infestation is probably 2 years ago. So there's been 2 whole summers of movement through that lake with us unknowing that clams have been there. Similar to in the Waikato, they probably found them 3 years after they arrived in the country. So this is the thing with biosecurity. You don't find stuff soon enough. You never find stuff soon enough. Without those additional surveys and additional programs in place, which I guess is why I'm talking in my option around making sure that we actually allow for some of that and resource some of that. So we closed the lake. We set up the Regional Cubicular Coordination Group with the New Plymouth District Council as the owners of the lake, Ngāti Te Whiti, the Hapu DOC, Biosecurity New Zealand, Fish and Game, Earth Sciences, and the Waikato Regional Council to give us advice on what they'd learned. So in mid-December, we made a decision that we would drop the level of the lake. We were hoping it would drop way further than it did. So natural draining. In fact, you guys were there the day that we opened the outlet. So the natural draining after 5 days did not allow us to get as far into the lake as we hoped, and it did not allow us to safely depopulate the fish, which would be required because we're taking all the water away. So I put a halt on that after about it was pretty much a day's fishing overnight and into the next morning. It wasn't safe to continue, but it did allow Earth Sciences to do the survey around the outside of the lake, and that's that attachment that you've got. So again, that's not a census, it's a survey. So the fact that they only found the clams on the boat ramp side of the lake is encouraging, but it's not definitive that that is the only place in the lake that those clams are. We didn't get right into the middle of the lake because the water was still there. And, you know, it's a bit like if I'm looking for Mr. Uru and I look over here, then I'm not going to find him because he's over there. But, you know, it's about exactly where your sampling takes place. So it's encouraging, but not definitive.
Donald, you're not a councillor anymore. Sorry, you cannot speak.
So I can answer that. I'll answer it later.
Just one.
So the issues we've got, as we've talked about, and Mr. Neal just talked about, is there's no money for this. In the Waikato, Biosecurity New Zealand have made a decision because it is so infested that elimination is not an option across New Zealand, or eradication across New Zealand is not an option. So they've moved to an enhanced check, clean, dry program, which is specific to clams. So in the Waikato, if you have your boat in that river, there are specific rules you have to maintain to be able to move your boat out of that river. So again, there's a risk there. Everyone knows there's a risk there, but that's what they've ended up doing because there's no way they can stop any further spread. It's just too infested up in the Waikato. So there's no budget. Even if we do attempt to do one of these eradications, there's no guarantee we'll get them all. Like I said, there's been one small-scale elimination trial, but there's also no guarantee that they haven't already spread and that they're not all going to come back from Waikato or another area. So while I agree with a question Donald made, with a statement Donald made earlier, it is a good lake if you're going to have a lake that's infested. There's still no guarantee that we're going to successfully remove them.
Steve, if we were to find that it had spread, then we would reopen Rotomanu, surely, if it's in other lakes already.
And that potentially, yes. The other thing, when I mentioned it in the options, they're around intentional movement and unintentional movement. So I know other people, boaties that we've been talking to over the last few months have said, well, you know, what happens if it just turns up in another lake, then we'll get Rotomanu back. So there's some things that we need to think about there. But you're right, if it's gone wider, then what's the point, I guess you could say. Part of the options that I've created there is around making sure that we do put a washdown facility at Rotomanu and then figure out what that looks like. So I guess in the paper I talk about permanently closing the lake. In the last couple of weeks I've talked with MPI, Biosecurity New Zealand, and got my head around what the Waikato rules are. And like I said, they're not permanently, they haven't permanently banned motorised craft. So I think I would soften it if I was writing it today rather than 2 weeks ago and say I think we need a closure until we get a system in place that allows proper cleaning at that particular boat ramp.
That's great to hear.
So, yeah, and that's just been in the last couple of weeks as I've looked at what the rules look like. Just to be clear also, the Regional Council has no powers to close that lake. We're basically working right now on the goodwill of the New Plymouth District Council to close it so far. If we go any further, I would suggest that Biosecurity New Zealand, who have the power, would put a controlled area notice over the lake, which would say it needs to be closed until such time that we can allow for proper cleaning to carry on.
Okay, there's a lot there. We've got questions already, so you good to take them? You done?
I can go through the options, if I'm sure you've all read them. So I don't need to go through them if you're happy to read them. I can just take questions, up to you,
Let's
Chair.
just take questions, and I'm sure we'll be going through the options as we go, Susan.
Obviously, well, I understand the limitations between surveying and what have you. The best evidence we have at the moment is that it is nowhere other than Rotomanu, correct?
Correct.
So why wouldn't we maintain a closure of that lake to prevent it going elsewhere?
And that's definitely where I landed in my conclusions, saying the most risk is powered watercraft, stop powered watercraft.
And we have no ability to police the way that people behave once they're on the lake.
No.
And no ability to enforce any kind of limitation. So again, I would say, why don't we simply keep the lake closed, at least for the time being?
And that would be the request that I think, following today, that we would make to Biosecurity New Zealand, because again, we can't.
To MPDC in the first instance.
To MPDC
and let them consider it as their council decision in the first instance, and how Biosecurity New Zealand chooses to exercise its statutory.
But we can only ask.
Sorry?
We can only ask.
We can only ask, suggest. It's not our. The key point is it's not our suggestion. It's the MPDC and the Plymouth District Council Act. They control it.
So, I know Neil's got a question, and Donna, but could you just enlighten me? Say they're on a jet ski, and the water has got, the things have spawned, and they've got their, whatever they are, eggs. Inside your motor, does a washdown facility, do they flush, or does that, next time that jet ski goes somewhere else, in 2 weeks' time, will it come out when it...
So the rules as I understand them in the Waikato is you must wash down your craft, and then it is not allowed to go into any other waterway within 48 hours.
Right.
So you've got to wash it and drain it all out, but you're not allowed to put it in any other waterway for 48 hours, allowing for the clams to perish. That's only for motorised craft like a jet ski or an outboard motor craft. The big $100,000 wake boats are not allowed to move. Because you can't clean out the water pontoon inside the boat. So they can't move. But as part of the rules in Waikato, you can move your boat as long as it's been washed, flushed, and then dried for 48 hours.
So 48 hours is the sort of the threshold of these things surviving outside a lake. Now,
I'd just like to ask some technical questions if I could. Firstly, there's three really. The first one is you more or less suggested that salinity, that's to say salt, levels are the thing that kills these clams. And there aren't many animals that are sensitive either to fresh water or to salinity. So the other thing is, how much do we know about how effective that is? In other words, is there a limit? Do we know what the limits of amount that you would have to get the salinity to? Is seawater the sort of thing level, or what is there? And the other one is, in that particular thing, is other forms of things like, for example, if the alkalinity, that's to say the pH of the water was changed, would that have an effect upon them? So that might be a more cheaper option than anything else you can suggest as a possibility. So I'll ask that first, and I've got a couple of other quick questions.
Okay, through your chair. Salinity-wise, there's been testing by Earth Science looking at how salty does it have to be for these clams to not prefer it. The clams will actually survive brackish water, so estuarine type water. So they will survive in a lower salinity type area. We're pretty confident that sea water, which is about 35 grams per litre of salt, it will kill them. They won't survive in proper seawater. The very first calculations I started doing were based on a report that Earth Science did that said that 100 grams of salt per litre kills them really quickly. And then I went, okay, there's 270 million litres of water in that lake. I will need however many tonnes of salt. Divided by 28 tonnes of salt per truck, so that's 9,000 truckloads of salt. That kind of thing. So the next thing we went is, okay, if we have to get it to seawater salinity, that's still 3,000 truckloads of salt. So all of the Facebook people telling me we should just throw some salt in it, it is not sitting there with your Himalayan pink salt grinder walking up and down the lake. You are looking at significant areas of salt.
Oh, and they're quite useful just saying fill it up with salt water without understanding what that would entail.
So that's why we looked at the pumping option around, well, we've got salty water just 800 metres away, let's look at what the pumping looks like. When we started getting into looking at pumping, it blew my mind as to how expensive pumping is.
Yeah.
Pumps use 900 litres of diesel a day. Did you know that? They can pump the 270 million litres of water back into the lake is going to take 14 to 15 days of the pumps going 24/7, depending on how many pumps we get. That's why this is at $1.3 million. Just to move the pumps from where they're sitting in Tauranga to New Plymouth is going to cost 50 grand. So that's why the price is so high. So I say that just to explain why it is so high, because I sat in this seat a month ago and went, oh, it's $1 million. I made that up, but it pretty much landed at $1 million plus my contingency.
Well, following on from that, these various treatments that you could do, and I mean, I think possibly there's some sort of an argument for the science people in MPI, etc., to do further studies on what other things might be possible. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you use these treatments in that lake, will that not also mean, and is it a concern, that there are other animals, fish and other things there? So you're more or less going to have to sacrifice them to get rid of the clam.
Through your chair, that's exactly what we're going to have to do. If we decide that we're going to use either of the salt options or the drying option, we're going to have to depopulate that lake. So a part of the costing is how long will it take us to depopulate that lake? And we gave it a try on that test, what I'm calling a test day, and we've estimated we can do it, depending on how many people we throw at it. It could take a month, it could take 6 weeks to depopulate that lake. We have to concentrate on all of the tuna first. And at the test day, we had the Hapu there helping us to culturally harvest the ones that were big enough. Most of them were tiny, actually. So they took a bunch of tuna and processed them on site. So we would be looking at including that as well. The other question I didn't get back to was your pH question. So they actually can handle a real high range of pH, from quite acidic to quite alkaline. So I don't know whether we could manipulate the pH level enough to be able to do it.
You want to pour acid into the lake, I'm sure you can achieve everything. But the other question is the seriousness of this. Now, the interesting thing you pointed out is, and I know it's only a short period, perhaps of 3 or 4 years, but while we're being told that these things are tremendously motile and moving, if they're only, I know, and again, you've never really done a study to truly prove it, but if they're only found in certain places, does this indicate that they are actually moving as dramatically as some people suggest? And the other thing is the damage that's supposedly going to cause to various things like pumps, etc., from experience in other parts of the country and the world. Is this really such a dramatic thing, or is it not? I just, the importance of this thing. I mean, we've had over the years, and and we have things like Argentinian Handsome Myrtle Rust and Varroa and other things. Some things are so serious we have to take very serious action. Other things, the natural consequence of New Zealand's bio and so forth end up by containing them to some extent.
All right, well,
so do you know much about those sort of things?
We'll let Steve have a go at
Picking that
answering
apart.
those, and then
Thanks,
other people want to have a turn.
As far as what impact will I have financially, I tried to figure out some figures from what impact it's having in the Waikato now, because if you think the Waikato River's got a whole bunch of hydro stations all the way down. I couldn't find any figures as such, except for suggestions that depending on the clams, and up there they're finding clams anywhere from 2,000 clams per metre squared to 3,000 clams per metre squared. Depending on a number of clams, it could be anywhere from the high hundreds of thousands to the low millions of dollars per year per electricity generator at low levels, and just extending up. So it's significant money that you'd be looking at to keep, to maintain your systems to stop clams from going. As far as are they bad enough to do anything, to be honest, of all the clams that could have got to New Zealand, they're not the worst. If we got zebra clams, for example, or another mussel, in fact, other countries that have got zebra clams and these particular Asian clams or golden clams in the same lake, they don't even bother looking at the golden clams because they're nothing compared to the zebra clams. So part of my whole discussion is, or my whole options there is about going, we need a system in place that can allow us to look for the next pest. Now, we put our toes in the water with this a couple of years ago and put a half an FTE, and BNZ have given us half an FTE to do this light touch area, and that's what formed Biosecurity Taranaki. And again, that's what made us find this thing. So some of that light touch we've done has been really good. But I think we need to start looking at what is the next pest for Taranaki, and we don't know. We've got hornets up in Auckland, although they might have called it now. But different things are coming at us all the time. We had Argentine ants 20 years ago. We've got alligator weed, we've got all that stuff. Part of why in my option one, my preferred option, and then you'll see at that end of all my other options, is that we put the 250 grand, yes, it's a bit of a pluck at the moment, it includes an FTE and a program that we haven't designed yet, to make sure we're thinking about what's the next pest. It's not about the legacy pests that we're dealing with. If we keep thinking about legacies all the time, we've got to do them still. We still have to tell people to do their possums and make them do their gorse and all of that stuff. But we really need to be investing in what are the new pests to Taranaki. That's why, to repeat myself, it's in every option. I think that's the minimum we should be doing.
Okay. Donna, you had a question?
Some of it was around the questions I'd asked you last night about the economic effect, and I think it would be really great to see some long-term modelling on that and really get the, the companies like Contact involved and give them a chance, because it could have a huge effect from what you were saying, long term.
And sorry, Donna, through Chair. So Earth Sciences were given some money by NPI to do a lot of research into what are the effects and what is the control options and all that stuff. So they're actually working on that now.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. The other one was, we haven't talked, because from what I've read, the ecological health of the water when these things take over, it affects anything else living in it anyway, doesn't it?
So as filter feeders, they will initially clean the water, make it probably look a bit better. The problem they have is they have to make calcium to make their shells. They suck all of the calcium out of the water to make their shells. So they're growing, at a millimetre a year or whatever it is, or a couple of millimetres a year. But when there's a few thousand of them per square metre, that's quite a lot of calcium. So if they take the calcium out of the water, it makes it harder, not so much in Taranaki, but definitely in central North Island, for the water treatment plants to take the arsenic out of the water, because they use the calcium in the water to help take the arsenic out of the water. So that you need to make sure that you're not just cleaning it out, but the whole water science and chemical treatment will all have to change based on the fact that they're sucking calcium out of there.
But it's going to affect anything in the water.
And if they get to higher levels like they have in Waikato, then the native clams and mussels will be impacted on.
I think it's horrendous.
Anyone else?
Sorry,
Okay, Jim.
sorry, Mr. Ellis. Is that the only chemical effect, detrimental effect, the calcium deficiency in the water?
It's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but if I talk to my colleagues in Earth Science, they'll probably give us some more.
Talk about oxygen levels, don't you?
So they do deoxygenate the water so we actually put some oxygenation or oxygen level monitor things in the lake while we were doing it. I haven't seen the results from that yet. But after we did the drop of the lake, we actually, during that Christmas period, so we didn't have trout and eels popping up, people ringing me on Christmas Day going, there's trout on the side of the lake. We actually put more water back in the lake to make sure we had enough, A, cooler water in the lake, and B, make sure there was oxygen still in there.
Alan?
Thanks for the report. My option, obviously, is to try and eradicate them somehow. Probably the salt option, because I'm not that keen on the chemicals and what the long-term effect would be, not knowing it either. So I'm keen to see the boats still be able to use it, and as Donald pointed out earlier, it is a place they can come and use. If they're not going to use that specific lake, they will go to another lake. So the potential of spread is greater, even though it is reduced now because you have better wash facilities in the Waikato than you had 2 years ago when this infestation started at Rotomanu. So for me, I'm keen to pursue the elimination trials in one form or another. Hopefully with some other funding partners coming on board with it. So I'm not in favour of the preferred option, I'm in favour of trying to eliminate them. We need to give it a good crack before they can spread into other waterways in our area, and I'd like to see us try and contain it in that lake. Is my
understanding that would potentially entail a 6.2% rates increase over and above the rates increase.
If we got no further partner involved, possibly. But it's a small amount of money, you told me that per household, for the increase rather than talking about a percentage. You're talking about a dollar percentage for each place in each operates.
Sorry.
So I'm happy to pursue that.
I thought you were uncomfortable with the
I'm
rates
happy with the
increase.
number.
And through you, Chair, essentially that is option one, the preferred option, is that at the moment, we keep the lake closed, we look at our other options, we look for other funders that may be able to come in there and do it. So, as a biosecurity person, I'm all for trying to eradicate them from the lake. Don't get me wrong. Give me the money and I'll spend it. But I think we just don't know enough. We don't know, there's no guarantee that they're not already spread to other lakes. There's no guarantee we can keep them from coming back. So at the moment, I think that's why I've gone with that option, is to say, hey, let's keep working with NPDC on keeping the lake closed and minimise our risks. Let's increase our public awareness and our behaviour change programs, and let's look for other funders. So essentially, that is what I'm saying. And maybe I can come back to you with LTP next year and go, I've found $1 million, let's give it a crack.
I think we can potentially modify option 1 in that sense. Donna?
I was just going to say that option 1 in the recommendation isn't the same as option 1 down below. Option 1 in the recommendations doesn't say continue to look at options.
Yeah, potentially we could modify.
Yeah, so we need
option.
to.
So
they're
when
not
we come,
the same.
When we come to doing the motion, we can.
But that's quite
incorporate
an important
the
difference.
conversation. I've just got Bonita first.
Yeah,
Lee.
kia ora. What a quagmire. Good luck.
This is why biosecurity people drink, by the way.
That's
What
a
are you
great
drinking?
excuse. Maybe you need to harvest some clams to go with your drinks. I guess my question, obviously you've got the lake, we're trying to get the lake issue as scientifically covered as we can. My question would be any impacts of outflow from the lake to the receiving environment, out to the moana, out to the reefs, out to the other areas of recreation that could also be impacted, the other life forms that could be impacted by any outflow, the chemicals, the salinity, the pH levels, etc., that we may be looking at doing, and are we also taking care of the receiving environment as well as the focus we have on the lake?
So through your chair, that's why I've put in there for the option using the copper earth tech thing, that we don't know enough about it. Salt in itself, if we fill the lake with seawater, we basically let it soak for as long as we can. There's going to be fresh water coming into it, so we may have to keep that salinity up. Once it goes out into the outflow of the lake, and I think the chair, we talked about it when we were there, all the surfers know that water's not particularly salty anyway, because it's always colder than the sea. But it is salty, so it is going to go out at similar salinity levels to the seawater anyway.
Okay.
So it might raise it in that very bottom of the Waifkai, but I don't think it'll have a massive issue. As far as monitoring the downstream of the current outflow, that's part of the plan, is to make sure that we can say, have they actually, because that's the brackish water that I said they can survive it, can we actually carry on monitoring that stuff to see if they've actually colonised in there? We don't think they have, but we'll carry on monitoring to make sure.
Just before I come to, I've got a few here. Drying the lake out's not possible, is it? Because that would require pumping, and there would be constant fresh water seeping back into it. Is that?
So one of the options is that we dry it out as best we can, using pumping. We all live in Taranaki, so we know how much rain falls. So they need about 30 days of no moisture to die.
No moisture, okay.
So, and what they do is they sort of do the clam shuffle and move themselves further down the bank, and to try and find more water, and then they'll dig deeper into the sediment layer. So our thinking was that we pump it as much as we can from the GIS stuff we've done, the depth monitoring we've done at the lake. There's a few holes there that we would pour some salt into. And then the lake bed itself, we were looking at pouring salt onto it and tilling it to 30 or 40, as best we can, because the lake's going to be rocky. To keep the salt moving across that sort of sediment layer where they live. That's the option that we've sort of thrown out there. I don't think it's the best one. I think if you're going to do something, the full pump salt in and out is probably a better option, because then you can fill it all the way up. All the habitat where they've potentially infested is full of salt water, rather than you might miss a bit of mixing your salt into the dirt. But yeah, it's been real fun trying to figure out how we might do this.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. I mean, I can, if we're heading towards option 1, if we can leave I'll just get these questions in a minute, the door open, if we find the pump suppliers in Tauranga actually decide they want to donate the pumps to us or something, or there's whoever makes salt these days wants to give us there might be something. We've just got to, you never know.
It's on the other side of the strait, the salt makers. So
yeah, well, to get enough salt, we have to order the salt now for in 18 months' time if we want enough salt to get it.
It's not like that. I should invest in salt. Lee, you were next, sorry, and then Jonathan.
You just touched on, I think, in your brief about there's been elimination attempt on a small scale elsewhere in New Zealand potentially using one of these methods? Which one was that?
So through you, Chair, that used Earth Tech, the copper, and so the Taupo Aqua Park, if you've ever been there, it's where you can jump up and down on bouncy things with your kids, just up from the Hooker Prawn Farm. They found a related, not identical clam there, but it's the Australis version. And they, Biosecurity New Zealand, did a trial to use that Earth Tech copper. Some of the learnings that they took from that, so they probably put too much copper in because they didn't know. So the company that do that, there's a rep for them in New Plymouth. We've worked with him about going, what do you think we would look like as part of using it in this lake? And that's helped us with the costings there that we've put in. Plus I've added $100,000 in there because we don't know what those other effects could be. So I think we need to do some studies to make sure we do that before we would commit to putting Earth Tech into the lake. It is a good option though, isn't it? We don't have to depopulate the fish. So we don't have to go catching all the eels and the trout because it won't kill them. So that's why it's not a bad option in that sense.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your clause 38 in option 1 talks about identifying and approaching potential external funders. When I walk around the walkway at Lake Taupo, I see signs about boat ramp permits. Which they do. I mean, they're a larger lake, obviously. Have you considered or done any pricing if there was a boat ramp fee that would that?
Sure, you said no. I haven't. I pay a boat ramp fee in Taupo. It's $120 a year. I haven't done any costing on it. But part of our discussions would have to happen. I'll back it up. So after looking at what they're doing in Waikato and they're allowing boats to move as long as they check clean dry, I think there's a good opportunity at Lake Rotomanu with one boat ramp to put a system in place to say, and this is just me thinking, is going, well, if you want to use the lake, you have to pay for a key. And if you pay for a key, then you're signing up to say, I'm going to wash my boat. So that kind of system would be one that I think we would discuss with the district council, who are in the lake again, so to be able to put that in place. So if we can, with the district council, put a decent washdown facility there, and you want to put your jet ski on there and go round and round and round and annoy all the walkers, then you have to sign up, get a key and do it that way. I think that's the kind of early thinking we've had.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's very smart, and I think we definitely need a washdown station there, regardless of what we do, and I think that would be a good way to support it. And sorry, Claire.
Are we doing enough for the other lakes in the region, the likes of Ratapico and all that, within these options, or is there more that should be done or could be done for those?
So the preferred option gives us an extra person. It also gives us some extra cash. Thanks, Mike. To enable, so that the council, Abby's team, they do lots of monitoring in all the waterways around the place. It'll give us extra cash to help them to do more sampling, more eDNA samples, that kind of thing. So we'll be able to do more while they're out and about. Plus some of those high risk ones where we do know that boats are moving from one to another, we'll be able to put more staff time into that with this extra resource. So that's included in my preferred option to be able to do that.
Anyone else? John Moore?
Yeah. I was just about eDNA. So they like eDNA do pick it up?
It does. The problem with sampling eDNA, scientists will probably know more than me, the problem with sampling a lake is the water's not moving quickly enough. So it's a bit like the surveying along the bank. If you don't get it where it's moving, then it's not likely to pick it up. Whereas in a river, where the water flows really good, they're great. You know, we use them. We use them for our biodiversity team to see what species are in there. We take a few samples, and the water movement means that the DNA is flushing through. But in a lake, it's just not moving fast enough. So we'd have to look at what methods we use, but eDNA would definitely be one of the ones we would be looking at.
But it's not. So there are others available.
Others looking through the road cone and those kind of things in the high risk areas. So if you think of when we first looked for the clams the day after we discovered them. Lisa and I sat down there with a with a colander and a spade around the boat ramp because that's the main risk area where we thought we'd find them. So we can narrow it down as to where we would be looking.
Thank you for that.
Okay, look, we've had a... Oh, Tom.
No, Chair, I was just going to move it on, really. I think just sitting here listening, and I haven't asked any questions, but I think all the questions that are coming in, I believe option 1 will suffice for what we want to do going forward. I mean, it gives us the surveillance, preparedness, the scope of elimination, investing into funding partners, close the lake for now, and so we can come back and let Steve do his work. I mean, as he said, we don't really know, so this is a good option to move us forward, and I'm sitting here listening and I believe it answers all the questions.
Well, thank you for that. Would you be prepared to move a slightly modified option 1?
I don't think we need to, Chair, it's all in here.
Just hear me out. So option 1, agree that the uncertainty of success and real possibility of manifestation. Option 1, no elimination attempt, increase CCD program, commence new pest surveillance preparedness program, estimated 250,000, ongoing to preferred option. This is where we add, and that officers continue actively seek and engage additional stakeholders who may be willing to contribute financially to support any possible elimination attempt in the future. Okay. So we are leaving the door open then.
Okay. But it also needs added the proviso that the permanent closure of the lake to motorised watercraft, blah, blah, blah,
happens now.
Must continue.
Temporary closure.
Yeah. Well, fine, but at this point in time.
At this point in time.
Until further notice, it remains closed.
We're not saying temporary, we're just saying closed, and we can relook at it if we have to.
Yeah.
But it needs to be included in the resolution.
Well, until further notice then.
Okay, Chair, I'll move to...
You happy with that?
I just want to clarify. Yep. So we are keeping our options open to eliminate. So we're not making a decision right now. We're letting Steve and his team find out more.
Yes.
That is in the option further on. When I copied and pasted it into the main recommendation, I just summarised it a bit too much. But yeah.
So it is, yes, it is still there. I mean, that would be, obviously that would be ideal. We've discussed that. That's the feeling around the room. If we can eliminate, we will. If we can find partners to help us do that safely. Even better.
But in the meantime.
In the meantime, we're going to we'll close it and we'll begin that work, but we'll keep talking to the guys who make pumps.
We'll keep talking to everyone.
We'll talk to everyone, and also I've had a brief conversation with the NPDC. There might be some, being at their lake and their recreational users who are going to be affected, there might be some appetite there to contribute and help and work on a combined approach. So it might not just be us, because we share this lake between Regional Council and NPDC. So that would be a conversation that I'd be happy to help you to pick up with you, Steve.
I was going to say it would be really good to understand the economic effects longer term of it as well, if it gets out of where it is now.
Yeah, there'll be more on this, I'm sure.
All the talk is long term is looking at that elimination has come up with option 1. We wanted that listed into it. I'm still in favour of it, and I don't know if it is up to us to make that decision, but it would be nice to know the views of the people and whether they thought they would be happy to fund that by the people. I mean, like the users of the lake or the people in New Plymouth and those sorts of things. I haven't seen any surveys or things like that to specifically say what would your preference be. So we're taking it on ourselves to ban boaters from using it and not do anything with the clams rather than look for some funding options to go down that path. So I'm still in favour of that eradication from now instead of pushing that boat out further.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
John?
So what is the plan to do an assessment? Is it a 6-monthly or annual assessment to measure against the benchmark of the first assessment?
So assessing, so how often are we going to check to see if the clams have moved? Is that sort of what you... we can start that sooner rather than later in terms of adding some extra samples while the science team are out doing their normal runs. And we haven't really stopped looking, to be honest. We've got our biosecurity team. We have Abby, who was there with the day it was found, who works with Biosecurity Taranaki mainly. Her whole job is around looking at that. So the option is around increasing another one of her, essentially. So we haven't stopped looking. I think we would carry on looking at the other high-risk lakes.
Yeah,
we can add that in. I haven't designed the program yet. Lisa hasn't designed the program yet. But
that would be good to have them looking around the boat ramps.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We went and bought the road cones and more sieves and all of that stuff, so they have been looking. They're the scope things they use.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Donna, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
I'm against.
There is one. Do you want that recorded?
I think it's live streamed, will be fine.
So no, it doesn't need to be written. Okay. Thank you very much. Great discussion. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
So what do you drink?
Not enough.
6 months. I'll see what I can do. Thank you, everyone. Good discussion. Item number 13, we have environmental awards, page 61. Joe.
Kia ora tātou. The purpose of the paper today is to introduce some proposed changes to the environmental awards. I'll take the paper as read, but just draw your attention to a few key points. Essentially, the program as it stands has been running for about 30 odd years, and it's served the council really well during that time period, in that it's provided a great opportunity for us to showcase the mahi that's going on in the community around protecting the natural environment. Excuse me. So what we're suggesting, or what has happened, is that the event typically attracts really positive comments, which is great, but it's changed in scale over time. It started out as a sort of small event with event recipients coming into council after the council meeting and having a quick cup of tea with council, and it's evolved into the format that you'll be more familiar with now, which is a couple of hundred people at a hotel usually. And over time, our systems and processes haven't really held up to some extent anyway, to run that large-scale event. So what we're suggesting is that we take a look at that and make sure that we have a look at whether it's how well it's strategically aligned, look at all the things that we use to run that event, just to make sure that we can continue to do that if we choose to continue running the awards in the same way that we have. There are a few other things that play into that as well. Traditionally, things like sponsorship have covered the direct costs of running the event, and that has become more difficult in recent years. So that's something that we need to be mindful of. And additionally, we've got the backdrop of the changing, evolving shape of local government and whether or not this is something that we need to continue having a look at. So I'll leave it there and take any questions, but you'll see that our recommendation is that we do not hold an environmental awards this year, and we go away and do some work to assess the strategic alignment of the program with, where we're at and where we might need to be in the future, and having a look at the operational systems and processes if it's something that we would wish to continue.
Thank you. Helen?
Through you, Chair. To be honest, I'd be disappointed if they weren't held. They were a fantastic event, and as you said, it gives showcases the mahi that's going on in our area. It's also a great opportunity for those that have won awards to see what is happening out in their community, for them to have contact with those people. There's a lot of discussion amongst the recipients themselves. They're out there chasing up other people, whether it's for sponsorship or work that's happening in kind, and also the new technology that they're using. Those sorts of discussions happen all the time, and I see very positive things coming out of it. Maybe it does need to evolve to what the last one was, but there have been some fantastic ones prior, and I can see no reason why they shouldn't continue, and I'm more than happy to see them continue. Through the positive work that happens, it highlights to us the great work even the team at TRC do, going out with their environmental programs, with their help to the farmers. It really highlights to us all that, especially, and it highlights it to other people, knowing what is available, whether it's stress planting or what, those sorts of things we don't hear a lot about, but we hear it at the awards and the effects that it has. So for me, I'm disappointed to see if we're not going to go ahead with it. I love the outcomes from it and the things it generates in our community. So just my view.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for leading off first. I agree with that. I always say to people, this is the best night of the year, the best night to be a councillor, and the best night to be a staff member too. We get to celebrate you guys, all the work we do, and also all of the people who put in the hard work all around the province. So it is a great night. I've got John Maxwell's notes here. He says, well, he'd hate to see it go as well. And if we're not sure about the future, how about one last hurrah anyway, just in case there is no regional council?
There's a good point.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to go out, you go out on a bang, don't you? Donna?
I get what they're saying about the Balanced Farm Environment Awards at the same time, and I know there is difficulty getting people to sign up. I'm not so, I think a review is probably a good idea, but I'd hate to see that emerging, those young people, and these guys behind us are doing a fabulous job with the program, and I can't remember what you call it, with the young people? The ambassadors, because there was a heap of them came out in that last awards and the work they're doing around the place. So I'd like to see something for if we're going to not do it this year, that we just do something for those, to bring out those young emerging leaders, because I was a bit blown away with the number.
I think there is a risk that if we don't do it, as I said just before, this year, it never happens again. Tom?
Chair, there's probably only Neil and I that have sat around this table that long where we can remember back when we had it round in the council chambers. And it's sort of growing into a huge beast. I think around the council chambers and having that really personal contact with the participants was really good. And it has grown really just probably a bit too big. If we could sort of have something in the middle, and I think you need to go and reassess that, and I agree with not having it this year. But I don't think we need to have it quite as grando, because it will certainly give us an opportunity to talk, and the staff to talk with all the participants in a very small confined area. And yeah, I think it's just growing a bit too big, as you say. And I don't know what Neil's thoughts are.
Yes, I just...
Oh, hold on now, Bonita.
Oh, sorry.
It was a great event. It's always been a great event, and congratulations to all of those who have grown it to where it's become this amazing occasion that has become almost unsustainable in many ways. Another awards function that I've been involved with, we also had the same challenges, fiscally and physically, trying to bring people together. We decided to opt for the recipients themselves to organise a smaller event of their choosing, and we just funded a smaller amount to support maybe the catering for the event or something like that, which was really well received. It meant that people could have as many as they liked come to their own function. I think it is time for a review. I am mindful that it may disappear if we don't try to keep it alive in some way, shape or form, and I think it's a critical part of recognising the great work of our communities, but just suggesting that might be one way of doing it, and representatives from council then attend the events that are organised by the groups themselves with their supporters, with their families, so they're also not limited on numbers, and it's in places and spaces where they would like to hold it, just as an option. Kia ora.
I think we're kind of leaning towards come back with some other options this time around, perhaps. Neil?
I would just say that I agree totally with what Tom's saying. I think personally there's a lot of these things every year, and you go around to various places, even for awards that have been given years ago, and people have got these things sitting on their desks, And it is very important for the regional council to have that touch with the ordinary citizens and so forth of the community. And you meet so many of those people, you actually take photographs with them, all those things. And I think sometimes we live in this chamber and don't have an absolute connection that perhaps we could have. So I'd be sorry to see the thing disappear, and maybe it could be reduced a little in size, but it really isn't a vast sum compared to what we talk about. So I'm much in favour of retaining this year's event anyway, while we look at what we might do in the way of some savings. And again, with the way the world is with these various activities, it may be others who make that decision anyway.
That's right. Thank you. Jonathan?
I'm not in favour of not running an event this year for a number of reasons. We've got to understand that it's a showcase event, it's a public-facing event. It demonstrates to the community the essence of what TRC is about, and I think we should try and protect that as much as possible. After the awards, the last awards at the end of last year, I think I spoke to the chair about the organisation I work for, talking to you about sponsoring an award. And I've got a meeting coming up very shortly to put that suggestion in place. So I don't know what quantum people are paying to sponsor an award, but it inspired me, and I've enjoyed in the past going to the environmental awards in the past, and I think that the risk of losing it is something that we should be very careful about. It takes a huge amount of effort over the years to build it to what it has been. As Benita suggested, maybe there's a different way of looking at how we do it, and I'd be open to hear what that would be. But you won't have my vote to close it down this year.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Jonathan. And the relevance of regional councils was and the public awareness of what regional councils do was one of the arguments that the ministers put out there as to why they should disestablish regional council governance. So this is absolutely our public-facing event, and something that we can use and leverage off to let the public know what we do and inform them in that sense. So, and regardless of where we land, I think it's probably next year that we want to be looking, depending on where we land as far as a regional council goes, there still needs to be moving forward an environmental awards and a celebration of what the regional council does, whether it's the regional council as we know it or not. Those functions are still going to keep going into the future. So we know for a fact this year nothing's going to change. So yeah, I'm certainly in favour of what others have spoken to here.
If in fact we do, I think we probably just need to downsize it this year. Just bring it back a little bit.
Can we throw that back at you to have a look at some options and whether we need to downsize it and some costings, and also obviously there's conversations to be had about sponsors as well.
So I've made some notes about different pieces of feedback, so we can certainly go away and have a look at those options, but in essence the planning for the event, if we're to hold it in a similar timeline, that planning literally would normally get underway now, so we would need to make a decision pretty quickly as to what the format might look like. But if council is happy to charge us with going away and having a look at that, would that be something that would suit?
And we go away
So,
with this.
just in terms of, I'm trying to gauge where council's at. I think what I'm hearing is that you'd like to hold an event this year, but that it's a paired back version. So if we cut down things like the number of invitees, that's always a challenge, because people, especially if we've got large groups, they want to invite their whānau, and so that number is about where the number probably would be without culling, happy family members, which we'd be less than excited about.
I want him to be the Grinch.
We do get repeated, every year we get requests to expand the number of people that we invite. We're limited by the size of the venue and by cost, basically.
Do people pay to go?
No, they do not at this stage.
Because, I mean, things like Chamber of Commerce Awards and others, I mean, people pay, obviously, those who are winning.
Yeah, so that was among some of the options that we would have looked at as part of the, sort of review process. So that's certainly something we can look at.
But there should be, if there's any intention to look at the payment, there should be no imposition of payment on the kids.
I wouldn't, yes.
Or some of those groups, because they're all volunteers generally, or quite often.
Yeah, a couple of free tickets.
So have you got enough direction there? So we're going to do something?
So if I think I'm hearing council correctly, and you feel free to point me in the right direction, but we definitely want an event and it will be smaller to the extent that I'm physically able to do that. Benita?
Yeah, sorry, just suggesting that the team do their best to come back with some options so they don't have to wait another 6 weeks for us to make a decision. Can we delegate a smaller group to mull over that and make a decision so that they're not waiting around?
That would be helpful.
Well, I'd be happy to make a decision based on some feedback I get from all of you. We could do that. Yep. Good. Circulate that. Once
would be helpful.
we've got some options, and we'll see if we can come to a consensus.
I'll move in that direction, Chair.
And leave it on the table, yeah.
Through you, Chair, I'd hate to see the number of people diminish just obviously for a straight cost saving thing. I think you need to look at maybe if you restricted categories or came up with some other.
Well, that's what the staff will come back with those options.
Yeah, there might be other ways to save costs.
Delegate that decision.
Let's celebrate those that have done the great work.
Yes, all right. So we've had a good enough conversation. We're going to leave the recommendations on the table. We'll receive the recommendations, but we'll leave them there and not make any decision. Can we do that?
Well,
thank you. So Benita and Tom. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, there are none. Tab 14, Rotukeri Scenic Reserve update. Joyce.
It's me again, surprise. This paper also deals with the environmental awards, and I'd just like to welcome Mike and the team from Rotukari, and thank you very much for making the visit to council today to receive this award. As we will be aware from the memo, Rotukari were scheduled to receive an award at last year's environmental awards, and that didn't happen as planned, so we are here today to put that right and to provide the award, and I'll shortly hand over to Craig to make that formal presentation. But at first I just wanted to show a wonderful video about the mahi for which Rotukari are receiving an award.
Thank you.
And Marie's going to play that for us in a sec.
We have
Not looking for fast.
There is a real.
Which of you is the hobbit in the bush?
There is a real person in there, and I believe it looks like Lance.
There's a glitch in the matrix.
Cat's worst nightmare.
They were told. No,
Just while we're waiting for the crew to queue that up, for those of you who weren't aware, the team from Rotukari were awarded highly commended in the biodiversity category, and it was specifically for their work around restoring biodiversity outside the boundaries of the fence, so working with landowners, volunteers and the like to support thriving habitats outside the fences.
It was a great name, calling it the Halo Project. I thought that was,
Oh yeah, fantastic.
yeah, bang on the money.
Yeah.
So, would you mind standing up so we can see you guys? please. Thank you so much for coming in. Look at them all. This is a fantastic, passionate.
I'm happy to
bunch.
introduce, well...
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yeah, go.
Here we go.
So
Thank you.
Joe Menzies, one of our... Oh, we're into it.
No, keep going.
No, keep going.
So Joe Menzies is one of our founding trustees at the far end there, yep. So Joe's been there forever. Hadrian Cleary, he's our general manager at the moment. Lance, who's the star of the movie. Killer. Myself, chair, I've also been with the trust since the very beginning, or before the beginning, as some of us have. Deborah Clough, another one of our trustees, been around for about 9 years, 10 years. Crikey. Thank you. Murray Prankert, another one of our founding trustees, neighbouring farmer also. Fiona Gordon, she's our conservation manager. She looks after all the critters and all the activity inside the reserve. And Tricia Jamison, our admin person who does all the documentation and keeps us all in line. So yeah, thank you for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome, and thanks so much for, like I said, all the work that you guys do. You're passionate, you're committed. You've been here. I've been here for 16 years now, and I think from day one, we were speaking to you guys, and you're always happy to come in and talk to us and help us celebrate what you do. And I must say, I was down there not so long ago. I spent the night camping there. It was so cool with the little guy. It was a little Kia's cubs overnighter, and then they went looking for kiwi in the bush at night, and geez, they just loved it. But those birds, boy, they're noisy. We were trying to sleep in.
You want to sleep on.
I'll give you a bit of an update too once we've
Okay, all right, thank you.
We may not have sound because it's running with the live stream on my screen, so we've put captions on and hope for the best.
So what I can, so it doesn't look like that's going to play the game, it is on our YouTube. Is it going to work?
It's playing that nice sound, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe. It is.
We've put captions on that.
A bit of lag.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. What I can say is that it is on our YouTube channel, so anybody who's really interested in having a look at that, it's a wonderful video about the mahi. It loses a bit of its excitement when you can't hear the words.
You'll probably talk to this mic.
Yeah, Michael, give us a commentary.
There's Lance pointing.
Pointing,
Yeah, that's where the for outside. Watch them, check on them every week.
At that point, I believe, Lance, you're talking about the number of traps, the number of,
Yeah,
the vast number. That was one of the outstanding elements of the application.
That's
a
in
number of
Campbell's Bush, actually, when it was taken.
Neighbouring bush block.
Yeah.
Keen to be consistent.
Yeah, K&E. Look tiny, my playground.
But it's good to have those sort of outside bush areas so we can compare what happens with the predator control and what happens without it. So
Yeah.
you get a good comparison.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago we found Greg Rifleman in there, but of course. There's robins in there as well.
So this is outside of the fence area? Wow.
It's what, 500 metres away from the fence boundary, is it?
Yeah.
Thereabouts?
Half a key.
And there's active predator control going on in
Oh, yeah,
all
I
those
travel
areas.
like crazy.
Yeah, and is
Not many animals get away from there.
is the number of pests reducing that you're finding?
Oh, it's sort of
Or
like
they're just constant?
But like when I started, it was out the gate what I was catching.
Yeah.
Very high numbers, but the last 2 years it's just
Flat line.
sort of steady.
Okay.
You always get reinvasion, especially with cats.
Oh, really?
Having seen this video, what Lance is saying here is we do the trapping outside because any birds that fly over the fence, we want to give them the best chance of survival that we can. So,
It's also reducing
pressure of those things coming into the sanctuary itself and engaging our landowners as well. So there's 17 different landowners, I believe, at the moment that likewise support that program.
No, 18, yeah.
18 years around you sort of small.
So how far out is the halo?
4,500 hectares, isn't it?
Or 7, I think.
Yeah.
2,700
Yeah.
hectares.
And as the video sort of touches on, we're now seeing profound biodiversity change within that space with things like robins and riflemen and geckos, forest geckos turning up in some of those fragments, which has been really powerful for the community to see that change within their own properties.
Yeah, we're getting landowners like reporting seeing more geckos and stuff.
That's pretty cool. I don't think I've ever seen a gecko in New Zealand.
I actually.
You got one?
I don't know.
Got one in your pocket.
I had one run around in the dock 200. Oh, lucky didn't see it all.
Fantastic. What a great project, Mike. Would you
I'll give you a bit of, just a bit of
please
update on
please
what we're doing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, councillors and staff. So, trapping outside of the reserve started about 22 years ago, actually, when we ran what we called buffer lines to keep unwanted critters away from the reserve. That was even before the predator-proof fence was up. We recently passed 20,000 recorded pest kills. I'm certain there's been many more because we did a lot of...
I went to about over 2,000.
I bet. Yeah, there was a lot more that we were killing, but we weren't really keeping the records all that well. But it just shows what can be achieved when you get passionate people about it. So removing these pests has seen an increase in the number of the birds on the land outside the reserves, including North Island robin, tomtit and others. We had a bit of a reality check a few years ago when we first released 20 Pāteki into the reserve. Within 2 weeks, 12 of them were confirmed killed, mainly by feral cats outside the fence, because they saw these ponds outside the fence. Well, it's a good place to go. We've significantly increased cat trapping since then, and we're now seeing, as Lance mentioned and showed on that video, Pāteki on the ponds and the rivers outside of the fence. So the trapping that we're doing is working. Yes, so there's about 4,700 hectares of land outside the reserve boundary. A variety of pests are caught with a variety of different killing and trapping devices. We thank the local farm owners and landowners for allowing us to access the property. Several also help with the trapping themselves. So Joe, who I mentioned, in Murray, they have land included within the Halo area. We must thank the Toy Foundation for helping us fund our Halo Ranger position, Lance's position, and all the work he does. We've got some excellent volunteer helpers who also help check and maintain those traps. A couple I would name, especially John and Helen Cooper. They're real active out there. Some other things that we're doing out at the reserve, we have a new building. If you've been out there recently, you'll see down by the council toilet blocks. It's a new interactive education facility. It's nearly finished, the building itself. We still have to work on the fit out and all of the technical bits that'll go inside. A lot of it's way over my head, but we're employing people to do that. That was donated by a generous benefactor who just wanted to see something permanent out there. There's now some land owned by the Trust. We bought 26 hectares to the east and we received stress funding through the Regional Council. Thank you for the help in firstly identifying that and helping us get that across the line. We've got some big goals with that land. There's been all the talk of the predator-free 2050 aims. We want to do that, but in our little space, and we'll work from there. We'll go across through the Tautras block, out to the Collier-Dixon block, and further across Lake Rotorangi and further. We've also purchased 20 hectares of land behind the Trust building. We've just parked that project for now, but I'd love to see a separate predator-proof fence around that block, tacked onto the side of our existing fence line. that'll be something that will be completely owned by the trust. We can control who goes in there. We can charge people to go in and get a higher experience. Whether we have things like takahe or tuatara and other wildlife in there that people will pay to go and see. But that's down the track. Give us a couple of $1 million of funding and we'll have that fence up in no time.
Okay.
I think we had a good meeting to come along to visit you, talking about the golden clam. That's been something that's been high on our radar. We didn't open the reserve on the 1st of December, the lake on the 1st of December as we normally would do. And that was one of the reasons why, because we just had this fear of, Jesus, don't let that get in here. It's still closed at the moment, but more because of high E. coli levels in the water. No? Okay, so we can open it?
No.
Yeah, so it's certainly something that's on our list to be aware of, and whether we want to open the lake ever again until Steve's finished his work, we don't really know.
You don't want to be playing catch up, do you?
No, and we have the ability to close the lake. We just don't open it. And the South Taranaki District Council are very supportive of what we do there, so whatever we need to do, if we need to close it, we will. We've got aspirations to remove pest perch from the lake, as it's long been thought of a major reason why we have high cyanobacteria or algal bloom over the summers. So that's another project we'd like to work on. We appreciate the help the TRC give us, usually by way of in-kind labour and expertise, and help with trapping and catching projects.
And give me free stuff.
Give Lance free stuff to go and kill more things. On the catching topic, over the next month we're catching surplus kiwi and releasing them to other protected areas. There's estimates of over 250 to 300 kiwi in the reserve, and that's too many. So this is in partnership with the Taranaki Kiwi Trust, so we do that on an annual basis. So there you go, that's our current update.
That's awesome.
I've been to one of your night walks looking for kiwi.
The night tour?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And if you guys haven't done them, you should. It was great.
Did you see a kiwi?
I did.
You didn't
Only
have
it's back
any
there.
kids on your tour then?
Pardon?
You didn't have any children on your tour?
No.
So, Mike, thank you on behalf of the council and the whole community, all of the work, all of that work that you do. Specifically, we've got an award for you for the Halo project.
This should be for Lance, yeah.
All right, go on up, Lance. Congratulations. And we're going to get a photo later. Or just Adrian, give one. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you, mate. Show that gecko later or what?
So I understand you're all joining us for lunch.
Yes,
That'll
thank
be
you.
fantastic.
So we follow Tom's lead and we're having a smaller, more intimate...
That's right. Looking forward to that. So we're just receiving the verbal report and thanking you for the update. Those are the recommendations. I'll move those. Thanks,
Yep.
Benita. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
On this, we also have the meeting dates.
Yes.
Receive the meeting dates.
Yes,
Seconder.
yeah.
Happy to move.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. We are about to move into public excluded, so you guys will have to go and come back in. It won't take long. Just before we do, while we're still in public, I just want to congratulate Councillor Bingham on her King's Service Medal publicly. Substantial contributions to local government and Māori communities across the Motu. Well done and well deserved. Gotcha. Okay, public's excluded recommendations.
Yeah, I'll move, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder. Thank you. Susan, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Let us know.